Okay, because I'm in Vancouver right now for a hike with some friends. I'm not in my regular studio, but I wanted to get this video out, and this is like the biggest vlogging setup I think I've ever used. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We've been talking a lot about the Sony a6700 on this channel and the rumors. It was just released today, so I wanted to quickly go over what I love about this camera, what I don't like so much about this camera, but why I'm still picking it up. First off, if you don't know what it is, it's essentially an FX30, but a hybrid camera, so great for photography, not only just video. There are some setbacks with that. The price of this camera is going to be $13.99 US, which is fine by me. It's actually a pretty good value for what it is. Let's start with what makes this camera different than the FX30, or what I'm not so thrilled about. So first, the body of the camera is obviously different, and it's not built to withstand heat threshold as much. But in Gerald Undon's 4K testing of 24 frames per second, it was completely fine. 4K 60 passable, and 4K 120 up to 18 minutes. A concern I have for my needs of this camera is that it only has one memory card slot, so if I'm second shooting a wedding or something like this, I can only rely on that one SD card, and there's no redundant recording like there is on my a7 IV. I also don't love that the HDMI port on this camera isn't full size, so it'll have to be adapted. Another thing for me was, we talked about overheating, but yeah, there's no internal cooling fan, and there's not as many customizable buttons, even though this camera has had a pretty healthy upgrade of buttons and dials. To round off the things that I don't love necessarily about this camera but are passable and I'm just gonna not worry about for now, is the camera doesn't have a joystick, and I'm used to that, but it does have that new front dial. It does have the same dynamic range as the FX30, but that's only up until 4K 60, and then it kind of falls apart in Gerald Undon's tests at 4K 120. And then lastly, the 120 frames per second, which I don't even have in my a7 IV, that is cropped at 1.5 times. So that's it for things that I'm not stoked about on this camera, but are passable, and I'm still going to be pre-ordering it. So why am I pre-ordering this camera? What do I absolutely love about it? Well, I do love that it's the same 26 megapixel sensor. For stills, I get 11 frames per second in burst mode. It has better buffering, up to 59 images. It shoots 11 frames per second, so that's great for all my photography needs. It has a viewfinder where the FX30 doesn't. In terms of video specs, you still get that dual native ISO up to 2500 for video shooting. You get 4K up to 120 frames per second. You get it at downsampled 6K up to 4K 60. That's all 10-bit 422. So all of this just makes me want to pick up this camera and use it as a B cam. Also, all my current lenses on the a7 IV are also going to work interchangeably with the APS-C sensor of this a6700. We talked about that front dial, so that's really good ergonomically, and also just adjusting your exposure triangle settings. It's going to be a whole lot easier for that. They also have, which I love on the a7 IV, which is the video, photo, and S&Q switch. And lastly, it's a better grip as well, so it's like a deeper grip and feels more like a full frame camera. Another big thing I love about this camera is it's the first in the a6000 line to introduce a fully articulating screen. We talked about the lenses matching up with my a7 IV full frame body, but also the batteries do as well. So that's interchangeable, and that's going to be great. Also on the a7 IV, the rolling shutter performance was kind of a big issue for a lot of people, not necessarily for me, but if you are shooting a lot of motion, the a6700 is actually better rolling shutter performance than the a7 IV. For the price, I think it's really impressive that they've been able to make it dust and moisture resistant on this camera body. That's $13.99. I really like that it has the autofocus chip of the a7R5. This is just Sony always putting their latest and greatest into the newer cameras, which there's a gripe with that, as everyone knows, is that they're not updating their older, more expensive flagship cameras. The last things I'm really stoked about is the lossless compression option, also assignable user LUTs within the camera, and the 4K 30 streaming option, which it's so easy to just plug into your computer like my a7 IV, and then you automatically have, like, you know, a flex-worthy camera rig for your Zoom sessions. And in the FX30, it actually only shot up to 4K 15 frames per second, so this is actually an upgrade. All of this to say that if you're a true hybrid shooter, this is the best APS-C camera you can get, certainly from Sony, but maybe on the market for this price range. So I highly recommend this if you are a hybrid shooter. But if you're video focused, then you know that the FX30 is going to have better features for you overall in terms of cooling and frame rates and dials and customization, no overheating, all that. If you are a video shooter, however, I do still recommend the FX30, and that's just because of the cooling system it has in it, so no overheating, and also better 4K 120 frames per second, better customization and dials, but that's pretty much it. So I just wanted to pop in here before I go on my hike today, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.